It's a beautiful day. The sun is shining and it is episode 4 of the Podscast. I'm very glad to have you with me. My name is Pod and this is my podcast. Very bad for SEO, as we know, difficult to search for on Spotify, but I'm thrilled to have you with me. This is my weekly podcast diary in which I delve into the previous week and reflect on what has happened and how I've changed and grown as a person. And boys, it's a bumper edition. Things have changed. Something has changed within me. Something is not the same. I'm through with playing by the rules of someone else's game. We've turned a corner. I'm sick and tired of coming onto the podcast mic and being like, oh, I've been a bit hormonal this week. Things haven't been going great. This week, things have been going better. I've made a positive difference in my life. I've made active changes because I think pursuing happiness is an active pursuit. I think the passivity lends itself to malaise. But in order to be joyful, you have to actively pursue it. And boys, I have been pursuing it and I've done well. And what I'm going to do before I start is set a timer so that I don't talk for an hour and a half again like I did last week. In the meantime, roll credits. When I said roll credits, I obviously meant roll titles. So we begin at last Wednesday. I had, for the first time, Ethiopian cuisine. That was the big headline of that day. I've been trying to expand my palate. I was a very fussy eater as a child, and to many extents, I still am. I still have many a foible when it comes to cheese and tomatoes, largely, which are ever present in multiple different cuisines across the world. So that presents frequent difficulties for me. However, I've been trying to make a change. Michael Jackson. Everyone's really forgiven and forgotten when it comes to Michael Jackson, haven't they? Everyone's sort of moved on very quickly. Anyway, I'm going to make a change for once in my life. And the difference being that I'm going to experience more food. So I had a pizza for the first time when I was 17, had curry for the first time when I was 19, at 24, having Ethiopian food for the first time. And we were having loads of discussions on the Hendu about interactive food, because Rue, who is going to make more of a cameo in this episode, is very into interactive food. She likes to shell things or unfurl things or use her hands in some way to reveal the food herself and be involved in the eating process, which I can relate to on some level, but also I grew very tired of the shelling process when it came to the seafood on the Isle of Skye. My patience there was limited. We were shelling for a full hour and a half that afternoon, and by the end of it my fingers are quite sore and I started to miss cutlery. By the by, with the Ethiopian food, what happened was we had these great big sort of flat crumpets, 60 centimeter diameter crumpets essentially, and thickness of, I would say, 4 millimeters. Big old pancake, but with a spongy texture. It was very exciting and had a real citrusy flavour to it, which I wasn't expecting, and that was very welcome. And then they blobbed various curries on top, and then you tear a little bit and you pinch it with your hands. Very hand-based. And as the guy was doing it, by the way, the most persuasive waiter I've ever encountered in my life. We would start to suggest something and he'd go, oh yeah, you want this, and with that you're gonna want this as well, and you're gonna have coffee afterwards. Yeah, oh, it's really good coffee. And we were like, not sure about coffee. He's like, no, trust me, the coffee's really good. And I was like, well, I kind of want a coffee to sort of round off this meal, because I would on the Ethiopian wine, which is very passion fruity in flavour, but still has that dryness of wine mouthfeel afterwards, the sort of wine aftertaste. Anyway, so I was getting merry on this bright yellow wine, and then I was like, I could do with a coffee afterwards. And the guy's going, well, if one of you wants coffee, it's going to take me a while to brew a second one, and you're definitely going to want a second one after you smell the coffee on this one. So then we wound up having coffee with both of us. Either way, he brought over the curries and sort of plopped them onto each of our pancake discs. And he said, okay, this is the lamb one that's mild, this is lamb one that's spicy. And I was like, okay, I'll be wary of that one. And then, being daring, I had a little pinch of the spicy one and I tasted it and I was like, that's not spicy. That's fine. I'm sensitive to spice and I'm completely fine with that. I don't know what the big deal is. So I continued to eat both by the handful. And it wasn't until about 40 minutes into the dining experience that I suddenly went, oh, heavens. That's starting to feel quite hot here. Ooh, okay. Ooh, slow down. A mouthful of wine, mouthful of water, mouthful of wine, mouthful of water. Ooh, it's still there. Still quite tingly. Ooh, shit. Ooh, Ooh. My tongue is starting to, it's not feeling good. It was such a delayed thing. So yeah, eventually my tongue was essentially paralyzed. And I started to really struggle. Hence why I needed the coffee as well to sort of take the edge off a bit. And that didn't really help. And then, we were like, oh shit, I've got Irish class in 20 minutes. I've got to walk to the other side of the town. Fuck. And then I stood up and I went, oh, I don't feel so good. I don't feel so good. And my tummy was like a rock. It was a dense, concrete belly. It was like carrying a headstone in my front. Like there's like 9 months pregnant with granite. It was awful, just carrying it like that, really weighing me down. It was incredibly painful. I was very uncomfortable. I was like, it feels like there's excuse me, it feels like there's gas somewhere in me, but it can't come out. So I was literally having to like pause every few seconds to go, ow, to carry my belly. Luckily, I was wearing a dress that I purchased, I think erroneously, it being a maternity dress. I don't think I realised that. It's one of those where it's sort of empire line in the waistline's directly under bust, and it just sort of balloons out, and it's very comfortable, if slightly too long for me. So I do have to hitch it up when I'm going upstairs because dresses aren't made for 5'3" people. But that, I've never been so relieved to be wearing a certain style of dress in my life, because my goodness, did I need it when I was transporting my rock belly. And then I had to sit with it through Irish, and as I was sitting, it kind of subsided a bit, and I was the only one on water. It's become a bit of a tradition to have Guinness with the Irish class. I think that's just lovely, but this time I was like, that Guinness is way too heavy for me right now. I need the lightest thing possible. I asked for water with a slice of lemon and sounded like a right old dickhead in the Celtic bar. And got through the Irish class. It was a perfectly lovely class, and I forgot that I had any belly problems, whatever, and then stood up and went, oh god, oh, walking back to Central. Oh, Jesus, sure that hurts. Jesus. Also, we were doing opinions in Irish class. So I can say, so you'd say, An Mila Tom Cruise, and I would say, Near Wylam Tom Cruise, near Milam Tom Cruise, Is Farlam Nicole Kidman, Is Fulam Tom Cruise, Ta Shay, Neil Shay, Simul. All the Irish heads in the crowd know what I'm talking about. Anyway, also on Wednesday, before Ethiopian rock belly gate, we went to the sauna and had a lovely time. It was a sauna that was on Loch Lomond. Now, we've been to saunas all over the place, and we keep floating the idea, we being me, Kieran and Jordan, of trying to do interviews in the sauna. I think it'd be such a good format. The only difficulty being, how the fuck would you get any form of technology in there? Everything's gonna melt. We were in there, I think it was 80 degrees when we started, got towards 90. It was a hot one, and we kept pouring water on, and it was a wetter sauna than most. This one was more adjacent to a steam room. You find a lot of the time there's a real sort of dryness to it, and your throat starts to get really dry. Maybe this is just a me thing. I get really dry throat, and then I get super croaky. And it's not that sort of sexy husky sort of croaky. It's just like parched rubbery throat sound. It's not pleasant, and I have to really force sound out to talk, which is good. It slows down my speed of speech for at least an hour, but I just think that would be such a good interview format to be in there, coping with the heat. You're in it together, not dissimilar to hot ones, but except the fact you got a sort of reprieve when you go out and you dunk in the tub. So maybe the interview would be in the ice tubs afterwards. Ice in the just cold water tubs. You don't even need ice in there for it to be extremely refreshing. I also on Wednesday took the blazer out for the first time. Remember I said that I bought that girl's blazer not knowing that it had previously been hers, and I said I would give it some adventures. The first adventure was to Irish class and to the Ethiopian restaurant that hurt my tummy. So that was Wednesday. On Thursday, everybody, I saw the movie Obsession. Now, I know what you're thinking. Charlotte, you are not, if you call me Charlotte, otherwise Pod, you are not a horror movie buff. Right, I'm not a horror movie buff. It's similar to different kinds of foods, exotic foods. I've been very tentative with my ventures into the world of horror movies because I scare quite easily, and my response to that has been to just sort of take the piss out of them and not really involve myself fully, to immerse myself in the experience of the horror movie, because I'm sort of taking a step back. There's a sense of removal so that I don't allow myself to get too scared. However, I now live with boys, so the horror movies have been more plentiful, and there has been a real range of subject matter and quality and scariness between them. Been some really good ones. So we saw Together last year. Would you call that a horror? I get like, it's sort of a body horror. So it's the movie with Alison Brie and Dave Franco. And the idea was that there's some sort of force. Whoa, the chicken's not sitting still. There's some sort of force pulling this husband and wife together. They're having their sort of marital problems, but there's this force bringing their bodies together, and they start to sort of meld. You know, their flesh starts to bind, and there's a bit where they wake up in the middle of the night and his mouth is full of her hair, and they're like having to yank it out his mouth. Now that one, there were elements to it that I thought were really exciting. I thought it sort of bottled the ending by kind of placating it too much. I think it could have ended on a more horrid note, but there was lots of stuff in there that I found very enjoyable. Similarly, we watched The Barbarian, which I thought was really fun. It was very distinct between the first half and the second half. The first half had sort of elements of psychological horror, but also veering into kind of will they, won't they, like romance. Like there were a lot of different genres going on. Second half, just all grim and scary and body grossness. We saw Talk to Me, which scared me quite a lot with just the violence. Now, there's a trope that is recurrent in modern horror, and this isn't just me saying this because I've seen 4 modern horror movies and it's happening in all of them. Jordan's confirmed this is something that is happening a lot at the minute across the industry, of having these moments of like self-inflicted violence that are very sudden, and that's the jump scare, rather than having like a ghost or ghoul jump out and make boo. In this instance, it's someone like whacking their head on something or running into something or smashing something against their body. And that was present in Talk to Me, and that spooked the living daylights out of me. And the kid that was playing that role, wow, unbelievable child actor who's an actor rather than child actor who's a child. This is what I say every time I say child actor on screen, is that child actor who's an actor or child actor who's a child, because you're gonna fall into one or two camps. Owen Cooper is the ultimate child actor who's an actor, as was Will Poulter. Every so often you get a child actor who's a child, and then they're not pulling their weight. The one from Modern Family, I saw one episode of that and I went, child actor who's a child. That to say, there was also a bit of self-inflicted bodily violence in Obsession, and my God, did it give me the spooks, made me jump every time. But the big takeaway from that movie is that Indy Navarrete, is that how you pronounce her name? The main girl from Obsession is going to win an Oscar. Put all your money on it now. Put your life savings on it. Put the mortgage, the house, the kids and the pets as collateral against this bet that Ms. Navarrete is going to be wielding that tiny gold statuette at some point down the line. She is the next big thing. That is the most range I have ever seen an actor display in the course of one role. That was unbelievable. Her facial movements are insane. If that girl ever touches a Botox needle, I will smack it out her hand, because the flexibility of her facial features is like nothing I've ever seen. Is it like nothing I've ever seen? It's like, well, no, do you know what it's like? Is people who are old school comedians, that kind of rubbery facedness. It's, just the full gamut. How she went from being horribly overtly cringe, like outwardly extrovertedly skin crawlingly loud and attention drawing, to then just the stillness of horror and just the most anxiety inducing silence. Oh, so incredible. And to see also behind the scenes how they created that kind of horror with just basic makeup. Like, there's no CG to it. It's just standing in the shadows with makeup that makes your eyes look bigger in the middle and smaller. And it's so effective. And the storytelling was incredible, and we all walked out there with different theories and different things we picked up on. Unfortunately, what this does breed when you have a movie that is so intricately designed and has all these little Easter eggs to find is that people become quite annoying in the discussion of it. Because as soon as I came out that movie theater and I followed Ms. Navarrete, I really want to be able to pronounce her name. It's bothering me that I haven't heard it out loud yet, so I don't know if it's Ind or Indie or what. And I followed her on Instagram, and then I went back into my home feed and it's just wall-to-wall Obsession content, which is fine because, you know, it's nice that everyone can discuss it, but everyone is under the assumption that they've spotted something that no one else has, and that's never true. And it's people coming out with the most obvious horse shit when they're like, did anyone notice that at the beginning the cat died from eating pills and overdosing by accident? And then that was, sorry, spoiler, but I mean, you know, that's the most Chekhov's gun I've ever seen. People being like, did you notice that happen? Yeah. Did I notice Chekhov's massive fuck off rifle? The AK-47 that Chekhov slammed on the table in the first act? Yeah, I did. I'm not a dunce. Media literacy being what it is now has led to people assuming that the most basic observations are high quality, in-depth, multi-contextual, layered observation. Just people, it's created a rise in pseudo-intellectualism that really pisses me off. I've got very little time of day for it. And I think people need to take a walk before posting any content about obsession, because unless it genuinely is something no one else has noticed, it's just going to irk me a little bit. And that is the downfall of having someone like Curry Barker, who's put their full directocy into it. On Thursday night, Kieran played in the Clutha, as he has been doing for the previous few weeks and will continue to do up until the World Cup. It was a really fun gig. I was sat next to two guys who were from Warwick. They're from Stratford. That was it. They were from Stratford upon Avon. I was sat on my own, as I'm wont to do. I often go to these gigs because I really like the vibe, and we'll have a little pizza and have a little pint, chat to Murray, who works there, and listen to the tunes. It's a lovely pub. It's one of my favourite places in Glasgow. And I was sat by myself, and I often bring my book and we'll just read, pass the time if I'm not watching, or because I don't want to be on my phone. I'm sick of phone, as we all know. And these two guys sat next to me, and they were so into it. They really loved what Kieran was bringing to the evening, and they'd missed the close of the kitchens. They had to go to another pub to have dinner, and then when they came back, they'd also recommended two people who were in this other pub to come over to the Clutha, so they brought more people with them, and the vibe was so good. And there were a load of guys there who were sat right at the front, and I think they'd all taken an exam. They'd just finished their exams or something, and they all wanted Kieran's t-shirts, so they were all wearing matching t-shirts to celebrate, and we were all dancing at the end. You just think, oh yeah, this is what it's about. It's a connection with random strangers. It's such a fulfilling feeling, and I love it, and it's so lovely that I can rely on a Thursday evening to go and get that and just be around other people who enjoy music. It's especially nice when it's as packed as it was on Thursday, when there's just enough people there that you can do a little bit of a strip the willow, and everyone's dancing to Don't You Forget About Me at the end. That was just a really nice end to the day. I liked it a lot. So get you down to the Clutha, especially for the send-off party before the World Cup, at which Kieran will be playing again. It's a very excellent vibe. I bring my parents there every single time. So I'll see you at the Clutha. Okay, Friday, I made 2 technological improvements in my life. Number 1, I downloaded Bumble BFF, as I said I was going to do last time. Some quibbles with that, but we'll get to that. And number 2, I made my phone black and white. Now, why do you make your phone black and white? I heard somewhere that if you do that, it makes your phone less addictive, because it's the bright colours that are making the endorphins fire off in your brain when you're looking at your phone. So I heard people saying if you turn off the colour, then it makes it easier to sort of put it down and lower your screen time. Within a week, my screen time has halved, because the problem I was having was that I would be scrolling through reels, or just my feed, or scrolling through TikTok, and I'll just go, oh, just one more, and then I'll go, and then I'll watch one more, and then I'll already have flicked before I notice what I'm doing. I'm on to the next thing. Then 10 minutes has passed, and an hour has passed. I've lost a full hour of my time from just not being able to put it down because it feels so good. It reminds me of the way that people have been explaining processed foods recently, especially when it comes to Pringles, because the idea with Pringles is that there's some kind of process that's happened during the manufacturing where they've already bypassed a step of the food breakdown process that normally happens in your gut. And I really hope I'm explaining this correctly, because this is just something I've remembered someone else saying, that when that process happens in your stomach, it releases messages to the brain to let you know that you're full. So that's part of the process of satisfaction when you're eating, to let you know to stop eating. Now, because that's already happened in the manufacture of Pringles, you don't have that messaging to tell you to stop eating, which is why it's so difficult to stop. You have one, you're like, oh God, that's really good, just have one more. Next thing you know, the whole tub's gone. You got the Ollie Murs empty tub on your hands. And I feel like a similar thing is happening with scrolling, where it's just like that messaging to tell me I've had enough isn't there. As soon as I put the black and white thing on, it's completely revolutionized the way I'm looking at my phone. It's so much easier to go, okay, and that's the end, down it goes. I don't have that impulse anymore by and large. Sometimes I do, but the majority of the time I don't, and that has made the absolute world of difference. And I was preaching this to anyone who would listen right up until last night. What happened last night? I was using my phone as a sat nav to navigate back from Guruk. I was exiting a car park, and Jordan has said to me, does it not make a difference when your phone's black and white when you're using a sat nav because you can't see the blue line that's supposed to be the line you're following? And I was like, no, it's fine. What did I do? I drove the wrong way down a wrong way street. Wrong way down a one-way street. The people of Guruk were not happy with me. That's only the second time I've done that. It never feels good. The first time was in Uppingham, and boy did I panic. And this is especially sad for me because I've really been upping my game with driving. I feel like I've turned a corner with it, and being a much more confident driver, because I've always been very nervous about it. I struggled in the lessons. I didn't click with my teacher, as is true for so many people. I feel like this is such a common experience to just not quite meld with your driving instructor. I was quite scared of her. I just found her quite brusque, and I used to get so anxious before my driving lessons. It really held me back, the fear that I started to associate with the act of driving. And I passed second time, but like by the skin of my teeth. And for the first couple of years, the only driving I really did was to and from school. It's the same route all the time, and it's mostly country roads. The only difficult bit's crossing A47. Is it the A47? Whichever road it is, the one that's near Tilton. So I just didn't really get that experience. And my worst nightmare was driving into Leicester, because my driving instructor had done that once with me way too early on, long before I was confident enough to ever do that. Like, it was my first time having to deal with lanes at all, because there were just no lanes to deal with in like Market Harbour area. And so I absolutely shat the bed. I was really panicking. She was going, well, just work out what lane to go in. I was going, I can't work out what lane to go in. I can't see the signs. I can't see the markings on the floor. I don't know where I'm going. I need you to tell me where I'm going. So that's always been this real panic for me. And the response to my parents, which I don't think really my parental instincts would differ from if I were in their shoes, is to just recommend to me not to do it, and to drive me to places rather than have me drive there, or to put me on public transport instead, to save me having to go through these difficult driving situations. But obviously that is not how you grow as a driver. That is not how you improve. And I do think I've improved more as a driver in the last month than I have in the preceding 6 years, because I'm actually being made to think about it and go out and do things that I'm scared of. I genuinely never thought I would ever drive in a city ever. I thought if I was going in a city, it would be public transport only or being dropped off. I have driven a whole heap of times now into Glasgow. I have driven to the south side. I've driven to the West End. I've parked up. I've mooched about. I've come home. It is so liberating to have that fear taken away from me and know that I can do it. And now just be like, yeah, no, sure, I'll drive to Guruk. That's fine. Just put in my sat nav and then off we go for 45 minutes and be completely fine, aside from going the wrong way down one way street. It's done me the world of good with confidence. And I'm really hoping that this one-way street situation doesn't detract from that, because I'm feeling really proud of myself that I can actually do it now. It's given me the feeling that I could realistically take myself on a day trip and go and drive somewhere, particularly now that Kieran's going to be away for a month going to the World Cup. I do have that liberty to actually drive myself to places and go and see things that I want to see on my own and be completely fine with it and not have to rely on another person to save me all the time. Touch wood that nothing happens to my car, because then I will lose someone to save me, because at that point I would shit the bed. I also, as I say, downloaded Bumble BFF. Now here's where we're at. I've matched with a whole bunch of people. I have just restricted it to girls for the time being because I'm missing having girl pals. I'm in a very male household right now, and I do need a bit of, what do we call it? Feminine rejuvenation, shall we say? Makes it sound quite lewd. Just hanging out with my girl pals. And it's so odd using a dating format to find friends. It immediately makes you feel shallow, irrespective of whether or not you actually are being shallow, because you're mostly just swiping based on people's photos. So I've tried to sort of set out some rules for myself so that I don't feel bad for swiping left on people, which is that if they haven't written anything at all, I've got nothing to go on, so I might as well swipe left. They're clearly not trying to find friends for the same reasons or in the same way that I am, and I'm just not gonna bother with that, because that's one of the first steps to setting up your profiles, doing the writing. If they can't be asked to do that, then we're getting nowhere. When it is just the photo of them, you're kind of like, oh, I feel like a bit of a a horrible person to be like, swipe right because you look like a sexy friend. That's not what it's supposed to be about. So I am trying to just ignore the photos by and large and just go off the writing. The difficulty being that everyone's writing is kind of the same. Like everyone is just looking for someone to go around the charity shops with and go for a pint with and, you know, watch some telly with. There's not a real distinction unless you're looking for someone to go on hikes with, in which case that's an immediate left swipe. I'm not interested in that. I don't want to walk anywhere. That's what the driving's for. So I've mostly wound up with people whose profiles are kind of all the same. So it feels like there's not a distinction between any of the people I've matched with. The app just feels like one homogenous friend that I'm messaging with 5 different conversations that are all essentially the same conversation. It's all, you know, what did you do this weekend? You've got anything fun coming up? You watching anything good on telly at the minute? What books are you reading? Like, it's all kind of the same. I don't feel like I go, oh, I'm really excited about the potential to hang out with this person, because I can't particularly tell them about, particularly now my phone's on black and white, I can't particularly tell any of these people apart. It just feels like it's the same conversation. So I do think there's a bit of a drawback in using a dating format for this kind of thing. But I'm proud of myself that I even took that initiative in the first place and have been trying to talk to new people, meet new people. So I think that's a good first step. I don't know that this is going to be productive, because also I think the transition to trying to get to a hangout from just the chat feels more difficult than on a date somehow. It feels too romantic adjacent. There's an extra layer of awkwardness that comes from it, from being friendship, because also then I'm thinking ahead of like, what if we actually don't have chemistry and then I have to dump them? That to me, that's too much for a like romantic pipeline thing to be like, okay, well, this isn't working, we've had 2 dates, I just don't see this working out for us in the long term. Like that feels odd to do that on a platonic level. Maybe I'm overthinking this, maybe this is something that happens all the time, but that just feels quite odd to me to end it in such a final way. I think the thing with a lot of platonic relationships is that they do just sort of peter out in a way that you can't have with romantic entanglements. So it feels very final and just different in category, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. See if I actually do get any in-person meetups. On that note, on Sunday, I went to a pottery painting event. It was a coaster painting event, coasters and croissants, which was so much fun. It was at a really bougie little shop where they were selling all sorts of artisanal, mostly pottery-based things, with some prints and some lovely tea towels and things like that. And they do all these different kinds of workshops where you're making something and it's phones off and it's just you and the girlies having a lovely chat and a coffee and a croissant. And it was really nice. I can show you what I painted on my coaster, but bear in mind that my phone is on black and white. So that's what we've got there. Good stuff. We all enjoyed that. It's pink, trust me, it's pink, and it's got lemons, and I was really chuffed with it because I did it all sort of, you know, freehand as in like did it with my pencil, and then I didn't have a reference or anything. I was just doing it from memory, doing my gingham print and my little lemons, and I was really chuffed with it. It did sort of feel like I hadn't spent enough time with these people to warrant us then like organizing to do something together afterwards. I didn't feel like I had either spent enough time with the people I was sat on a table with, or clicked enough with them to warrant that at this point. Not to say that couldn't happen at a later point after like a second workshop with the same people. I think I also think the downfall for me in particular is that I got so involved in my coaster painting that I mostly went non-verbal for the last like 45 minutes. I was really concentrating on getting it all right, so I stopped being quite so chatty, but again, a good first step. This is the change that we want to see, is me going out my way to meet new people in person in an event, finally with people who are my own age. That's been my big difficulty, is locating where they all are. And one of them gave me a recommendation for more stuff that goes on for people our age. So the world is my oyster. I'm going to be fine. It's just unfortunate that it's so expensive to make friends in this day and age, because there aren't any free third spaces to sit in anymore. But that's by the by. It was a really lovely, do you know what? It was such a great day. That whole Sunday, I have skipped Saturday, I'm going to come back to that, but that Sunday was really lovely to start off with my lovely croissant, painting my coaster, being all calm, having some great tunes on and meeting new people. I think that's lovely. I also was thinking about this. Someone should invent a sort of like team building getaway experience for strangers to make new friends. I think that would be the best way to make new friends, is just being thrown into it. Because I always think people that go on Traitors, they seem so close afterwards. Like, how many Traitors contestants have left with their new best friends? If you look at like Anna and Linda, they've got a podcast now, they're best friends, and Freddie and Francesca, they're super close. Rachel and Stephen, they're always hanging out, they're always on a red carpet together. So I think the fact they were thrown into this experience, they're sort of living with each other for a few days. I mean, also like the filming experience for Traitors, I feel like is super short and makes it look so much longer by the way that they space out the episodes. But being thrown into that environment, and it's sort of I'm talking about the precinct environment of novels again. That's a really great way to sort of foster friendships quickly. I feel like this microdosing of seeing people like for an hour every 2 weeks, that isn't enough for me, really. I'm someone who was raised in a school where we were there for like 10 hours a day, and that was fantastic. That is enough time for me to be fostering friendships with people when you're spending significant amounts of time with each other. And I miss that in adulthood. Do you know what? Boarding school for adults. Let's make it a thing. I want boarding school for adults. That would be ideal for me in this situation. That's essentially what the hen do was. It was like 3 days away with people that I've met all of them for like a few hours before, and this was all of us living together and hanging out and having our meals together. That was great. That was really good. Hen do's for in like regular time on the cheap in the city where you are located. That vibe. That's how I want to make friends. Okay, let's go back to Saturday. Saturday also, this whole weekend has been like a really excellent weekend. I felt so fantastic. On Saturday, speaking of the hen do, I hung out with Rue, who is the best. She's so fucking cool. So I went to Edinburgh where she lives, and we went and had some of the best sandwiches I've ever had. They were very difficult to eat, and I think this is a real bridge that the sandwich industry is going to have to, it's going to have to, what's the word when you use something a bridge? Do you ford? What does to ford a river mean? Sorry, quick sidetrack on this. To cross it by wading, driving, or riding through shallow water rather than using a bridge. Or to ford a river. Okay, so for the all that to say, for the sandwich community, I think this is a river we need to ford. Can we make them slightly easier to eat? Because it's not street food if I can't eat it on the street. I said this to Kieran recently, and he was like, no, because it's called street food because you can make it on the street. That's the point of it, is you can quite easily transport the materials that you need to make the food. And I was like, oh, I thought it was just because you could eat it on the street and it was easy. It rarely is easy, especially, you know, remember there was that whole routine that James Acaster did about having a crepe at a festival, and it was a cardboard container and then a wooden fork, and it was just every time he tried to stab the crepe, the whole thing would bend. As an impossible task to try and pick up some of the crepe. I think the sandwich industry needs to figure out how to reseal the end of the sandwich so it doesn't all come out, because I had so many excellent fillings, but they were everywhere, and by the end of it I was just holding raw fillings in my hand because the bread had completely dissipated because I'd eaten it all. But it had all just slid out the back, and then all the loveliness, you just lose out on it. And it was a very good job that they had so many wet wipes in store, because my god did we need them. Anyway, the sandwich was focaccia with bread. Okay, I'm gonna give myself wet mouth now. Focaccia bread, and then it was roast courgettes with lemon juice, and there was rocket and stracciatella, hot honey, which was a really good move for me. I like that a lot, and roasted hazelnuts. It was divine. And we sat in, I want to say, Inverleith Park in Edinburgh, and we overlooked the city, and there's the pond at the bottom, and everyone and their mum was there. It was a super busy day, super hot. I burnt my nose and my forehead. Well, no, I caught the sun with my nose and my forehead. You can probably see my nose is still a little bit red. I still look mostly milk bottle white in this light. Well, my arms have slightly caught the sun. I was going to tan today. Maybe I still will, but I've been really enjoying the freckles on my nose. You can probably just about see them. I think they're so cute. I love freckles. I love getting freckly shoulders. That's been a real W for the pod. So I caught the sun, and that was lovely. We had a little mooch about walking on our way back. We were in the park for a good few hours, and then we went to the charity shops, and I got this dress. This is the ultimate, dare I say, future MILF dress. It is so comfy. It's like a soft jersey sort of thing, but it's got enough thickness to it that it's not just exposing all the lumps and bumps I don't necessarily want exposed. The color is my favorite color in the world. This bright pink. This is the Elle Woods dress. If you were accused of a murder and it wasn't you, and all the evidence was pointing towards you, and you were probably going to get sentenced for it, and it's all unjust, and then you look across and your lawyer enters and she's wearing this dress, you go, I'm safe. I'm completely safe. I'm going to get off scot-free. This is the Elle Woods dress. It's also French Connection, and it cost me £10. I love a bargain. It was the Cat's Boutique in Edinburgh, the like Cat's Protection Boutique. Everything in there was absolutely immense. That is one of the best charity shops I've ever been in. Just the full variety of stuff they had. The colours were gorgeous. There were loads of really nice brands. The quality was fantastic. They had a whole glass cabinet of Loewe handbags, which we went in just to see what the price was, and I actually couldn't see what the price was. But then, completely distracted from that by how nice all the other stuff was. So that was such a win. And then we went back and we made a cake and we watched an episode of Dairy Girls and we watched an episode of Rivals, the latest episode, in fact. And can I just say, the MVP of Rivals is Charles. Oh my goodness. The guy who plays him, not only is he phenomenally talented, but I would not recognize him in real life. That fuck-ass wig and mustache that they have him in is such a good disguise. That makes me realize I would never recognize Clark Kent in real life as Superman. I would be useless. He also, I think, is Scottish. His accent is bang on for this, but just I just want him to be happy. The high highs and low lows that he went through in this episode are crazy. He had his real jubilant moment when he took to the stage's bottom, a part which I myself have formerly trod the boards playing, and he was the star of the show. He saved the moment. He knew all the words. His direction was immaculate. It was a real win for Corinium, which we don't want Corinium to win. We want Ventura to win, but we'll allow them this one because it's Charles. To then, in the scene in the dressing room with Gerald and the reveal about what happened to him that morning, and then the scene, I don't know how much of a spoiler to give away. Either way, the scene in the churchyard, and all his friends showed up for him. He deserves everything. He's the best character in the show. I know I said last week that Danny Dyer is the best character in the show. It's not. It's Charles. Charles is the best character in that show. Also, Danny Dyer and Catherine Parkinson, can we please get our acts together? Can we stop making ourselves sad? You guys deserve happiness as well. I just want you to be happy. Please just be happy. For fuck's sake. I can't take much more of this. It's it's the will they, won't they, but they are will right now, and I need them to continue to be will and not won't. The Verica man, Mr. Verica, Lizzie's husband, so slimy. Oliver Chris does it so well. I also think Oliver Chris really has not had his flowers. He has been such a pillar of Britcom for the last 20 years, because he was like the young intern character in Green Wing. He was the equivalent of Zach Braff in Scrubs. That was like the direct comparison. He was the young one who was getting the piss taken out of him by Mark Heap. He was the sort of young, sexy one of the program. And then he did all sorts of stuff. He was in the Windsors. I've never seen it. He was Julia's husband Paul in Motherland, which was quite an underrated part. I know that's kind of counteractive to credit the husband who did fuck all in that show, but actually he plays such a minor part so well, and the running bit of him just always being away on like a lads weekend, a team building weekend. He's at Arsenal, he's on a stag. It's when he's at TK Maxx in the Christmas episode and she's like, please don't get me another apron saying I'm the chef of this kitchen or whatever it was. He seemed like stuffing the apron away. So good. Him also in the Bridge Theatre production of Midsummer Night's Dream as Oberon was so fucking good. And it was really funny to see that sort of full circle of him being in the Midsummer Night's Dream, like part of Corinium. I just think, why hasn't he been given a sitcom where he's the main character? I think he deserves it. He's earned it. He's done so much stuff over the years for the face of British comedy TV. I just think it's about time he had his own sitcom. This is me. I am the campaign for Oliver Chris representation. Thank you very much. It was just a great day. All in all, it was a fantastic day, from the sandwiches to the charity shop to making a cake to watching Dairy Girls and Rivals. Everything was so excellent, but most of all, it's so nice to have a friend up here who is so lovely. It was just a lovely hangout day, perfect hangout day in the sun with a wonderful soul. Love you, Rue. Shout out, Rue. I had such a good weekend, you guys, and it's sunny. It's so sunny. It's so nice. I forget every year how much seasonal affective disorder really, really affects me. So I'm feeling through the roof right now. I'm high as a kite on the sun. It's going well for me. Anyway, back to Sunday. So I've been to the pottery thing. Afterwards, I went to the bungalow, which had a whole fundraising gig afternoon event to raise money for a young man called Craig from Paisley, who is walking the length of America to raise money for a mental health charity. Shout out to Craig. It's a fantastic venture. And we had a little Zoom call with him after White Noise had been on. You guys get on board with White Noise. White Noise is where it's happening. Have a listen to CR Likes Again, which is their World Cup song. White Noise, for those of you who don't know, and I can't imagine there's anyone listening to this who doesn't already know, White Noise is a family band made up of my boyfriend Kieran White and his parents Gordon and Susan, and they play music together, and it's so cute and everyone loves it. The music is so fun. Everyone knows the words to them as well, which I think is so lovely. We don't have that in England. There's no like just funny local songs that everyone knows. I wish we had. Well, there are in various places. I guess I'm just better because that doesn't exist in Leicestershire. But everyone knows like Sam the Skull. Everyone knows Doon in the Wee Room. Everyone knows Bonnie with Jeannie McCall, and everyone gets so involved with it. It's so good. You guys, you need to come to a White Noise gig. But more importantly, more pressingly, you need to be listening to CR Likes Again and watching the music video in which Kieran tries to replicate the Scott McTominay goal. To some avail. It's not the most accurate to what Scott McTominay achieved in that iconic bicycle kick goal, which is now featuring on I think the £10 or £20 note from the Bank of Scotland, but all the same, the effort is really there, so you guys really need to get on board. Now, that was not the only musical venture of the day, because that evening we went to see BIIRD. Now, I preceded this in the last episode. I said that this is going to be the highlight of my week. It certainly was one of the highlights of my week. Boys, BIIRD are so good. So BIIRD are usually an 11-piece. This time it was 8-piece, but Tuts is a small stage. 11-piece, all-female Irish trad band, and they wear the coolest outfits and they play in the coolest way, and they go from like the real sort of ethereal vocalizations that sound like they're taken from some sort of Celtic movie soundtrack. Just beautiful vocalizations. I was weeping at this one girl who was just she was singing in Irish, and her timbre was unbelievable. It was out of this world. To then having like really boppy lilt songs, and also two of them, Lisa, who is the sort of the ringleader of the group, she plays harp and mandolin and sings, and then there was Neve, who I think, was she on keys? I couldn't quite see her. She was far behind. I think she's on keys. She's also going out with Mowgli Bat, fun fact. They together are a lilting duo called Absolute Lilt, and they released a song called P is for Paddy, and I have had it on repeat and go, Peas, how's it go? I've had it on repeat. Here's how it goes. I can't remember how it goes. Cheers for Johnny, really, but Johnny is the fairest man. Johnny is the fairest man, my love. Johnny is the fairest man, but Johnny is the fairest man. Oh, it's so good. And also in the music video, it has Mike Rice making a rattle tit of himself, which I think is quite attractive in Mike Rice. So yes, that was really exciting, and we were right at the front. And when they did the encore and Absolute Ilk came to the front and they were singing that song and they were up against the barrier, I was against the barrier as well, and we touched hands and I was like, oh, dear you, and they were like, hiya. They are so cool. They're so cool. Get on board with BIIRD. They're massive. I saw them in London last year. They've also, by the way, not released any music. They might have done now. No, I don't think they have. Either way, by doing practically nothing that you can actually consume outside of going to their gigs, they are massive. And they were, selling out like Vicar Street and selling out that place in Westminster that I went to. That's the name of it is Numbers. Can't remember what the numbers are. That's where I saw it, and it was a huge cat venue. Like it was absolutely rammed to the gunnels as well. And I was right at the front, the only English girl at the BIIRD concert, really living it up. And I was very emotional about it. I think I talked about it last week. It was around the time that my grandma died. So I was very like on edge, and I just was so moved by the music that it swept me away. And a similar thing happened this time. Not that anyone was dying, but just the fact of me being swept away by the music. It was so much fun. And they did a little Kaylee section. We did a dance, and then we'd had a couple of beers in the sun beforehand. By the way, do we all know about Beer in the Sun as a song? Is it just something that we're seeing? By we, I mean again the three of us. We're seeing on our social media all the time. Beer in the Sun. It's this. Oh, okay, right. Let's do a tangent. I feel like my tangents aren't as succinct this time. But there's a guy who is trying to market his song, and it's the worst song that's ever been written, but it's also the best. And he goes, Alright troops, this is a new song that I'm releasing. I hope you listen to it. It's called Beer in the Sun, and it's the most auto-tuned song you've ever heard.
One of my songs that I wrote is called Beer in the Sun.
And we can't stop doing it. We're walking around the house, anything with 4 syllables. We're going, where are my keys? Where are my keys? Where are my keys? It's very addictive. And so every time we're outside and we take photos of us in the sun, it's Beer in the Sun. That's the song we're putting on our story. So we had a couple of beers in the sun in Paisley, and then we went into the city centre, and then we mooched along, went on down to King Tut's, at which point we switched to the Poddy's Poddy, and then there were 2 girls that were next to us at the front, and they had ordered wine and didn't want it, so we're like, well, fuck it, wine as well. So that's the most tipsy I've been in a little while. Normally I try not to mix, but actually I survived really well. The hangover I had the next day was just headache based, which is great for me, and the highlight of that drunkenness was having a pakora afterwards. Some of my best food memories of all time have been drunk food. I just don't think there's anything better. I always talk about the spice bag that I had in Dublin after I'd had and I had like 5 pints at that point, and I continued to have I think 3 more later on that evening, and we had a spice bag at that point, and it was just euphoric eating. And we took the pakora home after the gig, took it back in the taxi. I was lying down, had my eyes closed, just mouth open like that, and Kieran's putting the pakora in my mouth, and I was like, it doesn't get better than this. The taste of pakora after 3 different kinds of booze, oh, so tasty. So that was a real sort of a nigh on perfect day of painting my coaster and meeting some new people, listening to White Noise sing, and then going to BIIRD. And also, can I just give a big fat shout out to Dara Do, that's D-U-B-H Do, who was the opener for BIIRD. Kieran has met her before. I think did she open for Sister Mads? He did tell me, I've forgotten. She was astounding. She had a loop pedal, a harp, a baran, her vocals, and a dream. And my God, does she accomplish it? She was so fucking good. And she's got music coming out soon, which I'm very excited to hear. Great performer. Loved that. And absolutely stunning. So that was a wonderful day for the pod. What an absolute W. Monday, I've just put reading outside. Did I do anything else? I think I just read outside. I love reading outside. I had a moment in April when it's starting to get really sunny, and we took the camping chairs outside, and I was reading my book. Kieran was reading his, and I had a room temperature Tennent's, which is one of my favorite drinks. I don't like it to be cold. It hurts my teeth. Got sensitive teeth, particularly after I had them whitened in 2024. Just sitting with our books, and I was genuinely so happy just to be alive that I had a little cry. And the day before was not much different to that. I was just so elated at the state of everything. Just here I am with my boy, the sun is shining, I'm reading my book, I'm having a recorder lick, which is not as good, it's not as nice, just passion fruit, it requires mango as well. I was just so happy to be there. Boys, this is the theme of this week, being happy. Let's all go out into the world and be happy. Let us sit outside with our books. By the way, getting big into books again. I had a bit of a lull. I'm now back at it. I had real Lolita fatigue. After reading that, my reading has become so slow and sluggish. I've just not felt propelled. What I needed to get me out of that sluggishness was a book that was propulsive. And I found that in The Man on the Endless Stair. The Man on the Endless Stair, that wasn't very good, by Chris Barkley, who is one of the people that I saw at the Paisley Book Fest. Really glad that I picked up both those books. I'm now reading the second one of those that I got, which is Benbecula by Graham McCrae Burnett. Both of them excellent. So I'll talk about Man on the Endless Stair because I have actually finished it. It's a mystery, and normally I really step away from mysteries because I find they're too plot heavy and there's not enough about the characters themselves. I spoke about this a little bit last week. This one I thought was really fun. The twist I did not see coming. I didn't know that was the direction it was going to go in. Not dissimilar to a sort of Cabin in the Woods type thing in terms of just the tone and quality that it goes for. I just didn't see it coming from a mile off, and I constantly was second guessing myself. Well, that's what you're aiming for in a mystery, really, isn't it? To leave enough options open that people are starting to form their theories on their own, but then lead them down one kind of garden path. And no, it's now this one, or is it this person? Could this person have done it? Oh, but they've got the motive and the means, but the opportunity in this person. I thought that was so well executed. There were enough possibilities open at any one point that I just was constantly uncertain, constantly trying to get to the next chapter and find out what was going on. It felt like a really short book. I felt like I really whizzed through that. big font big font for my aging eyes. So that was a really fun one to read. All the characters were really exciting. I really enjoyed the geography of a book set on an island. We know this, that's my favorite setting right now for a book. And so the other book that I'm reading is also set on an island. How many books have I read set on an island this year? It can't just be 4. That's the 4 that I'm thinking of, but there's surely more than that. Hang on, let me just refer to my fable, because I read, so Long Dark Shore is the one that was set on a fictionalized version of Macquarie Island, which is south of Tasmania, between Tasmania and Antarctica. Then I read Muckleflugger, which it wasn't my favorite, just I didn't think there was as much plot as I wanted. Okay, so The Bell isn't set on an island, but it again has that precinct quality of being in a lay community around a nunnery, where it's very cut off from the world. So there's still that island quality to it, even if it's not set explicitly on an island. Other than that, I sort of feel like The Scarlet Letter has an island quality to it, which sounds stupid. It's set in America, but the fact that America was this like early colony at this point and is so cut off from everything else, and it's just like next to the sea, where across the sea is civilization, that being the UK. There's still an island quality to that. It sort of feels like they're marooned there. It's an insular community. So again, not an explicit island, but it feels like it. Yeah, it's just that. So Benbecula is the one I'm reading now, which is set, unsurprisingly, on Benbecula. And it's a really interesting setup for a book, because Graham McCrae Burnett was talking about it, the fact that he didn't come up with this idea. He was approached by the publisher, who wanted to publish a load of books by various authors about real life events that have happened in Scotland, historical events. And he assigned this story of a guy who killed half his family on the island of Benbecula, and it caused a bit of a stir. But that story is kind of passed through the annals of history into obscurity. It's disappeared. He's really shedding light on it, and it had very few documents to go on, because it was in such a far-flung place that the actual legal records are very minimal. So, and that's quite a lot of creativity. And I love a historical setting. This one's in the 1850s or 60s, so we're going further back. The other one was set just after the Second World War. It's great to read it now, having a bit of a visual of what the island would look like. Obviously, I've not been to Benbecula, but the houses that we're working with here are crofts not unlike the living museum that was on Skye. So I've got a really good visual to work with. I kind of have an idea of what those houses would look like, what the families would dress like, what their work would be like. So I'm just really invested in this kind of story. I can already tell what my next fixation is going to be, and that's going to be the Falkland Islands. Wow, I said that really badly. My mouth is real sticky this morning. I'm sorry. The Falkland Islands, because we are watching the Patagonia special, because all the Top Gear specials are on Dave all the time, and when we turn on telly, that's the first thing that always comes up. So we're watching the Patagonia special, and I was like, I feel like I know very little about the Falkland Islands. What I do know, I know from the play Handbagged, because I played Thatcher when I was 17 years old. So everything I know is just what was contained in that script. And Kieran was like, well, I'm glad you asked, because I watched a documentary recently, or I do you watch a documentary or like play a podcast about the Falkland War when he was driving? So I know all this stuff about it now, and I was like, actually, that is incredibly intriguing. I want to know a bit more. So hang tight for me to learn more about the Falklands, because aside from the fact that there's now oil there, it seems like historically it's not been a particularly strategic place to lay one's roots. So I will report back with my findings next time. I think that's about me done. So everything's going well. I'm having a lot of fun. My vitamin D levels are way higher. I'm enjoying feeling like a plant whose sunlight is rejuvenating the greenery of my leaves. My verdancy is improving. And it's time now, of course, before I end, to talk about the things I always forget to talk about. So first of all, my radio show. I'm really enjoying doing it. Please do send me your recommendations, but just bear in mind that I'm not doing it live, so I can't put your recommendations into the system unless you tell me a good 3 days before I'm due to go on air. But I will do that next time. So please do send me any song requests that you would like to have played on Lamont Radio. I am on the mid-morning show on Tuesdays from 10 until 12. My name's Poddy Wilson, and I am your Lamont Radio host. Okay, now time for Word of the Week. Did I use the word umbra this week? Of course the fuck I did not. It was way too sunny for me to talk about it. Oh, dog fire hydrant, by the way. Oh, I've got a fun one this week. I saw a dog doing downwards dog. Never seen that before, because my dogs, the thing with sausage dogs is their backs are too low to the ground for them to really do downward dog. Like the gradient can only tip so much when they're essentially at ground level anyway. But Rue's dog did downward dog, and that felt like a real moment of, oh, okay, I understand why the yoga teachers call it that now. Okay, let's have our word of the week. Oh, I like that one. Pavonine or pavonine. Not sure how to pronounce it. Pavonine refers to anything resembling a peacock. Typically, it's brilliant, iridescent, or multicoloured feathers. Pavonine. So let's all have an absolutely pavonine day. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Again, please do comment on the Instagram or the Spotify. Please do leave a like and a rating, unless you want to rate it less than 5 stars, in which case don't bother. Recommend it to a friend. That's the best thing you could possibly do. And if you know anyone who is looking for a freelance editor, social media person, journalist, radio person, anything in that sphere, send them my way. I would love to be involved. In the meantime, this has been Podscast. I have been Pod, and I love you.